Okay, so as I mentioned, we're moving on from a non-Adobe piece of software, and we're moving on to Autodesk. Okay, so the one nice thing about using Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator is that the user experience, the UI, the layout, where all the ribbons and tools are very much the same. Not talk. They're very much the same. So you'll notice that a lot of the similar placement. It makes it, if you know one piece of software really well, for Adobe, you'll know them all, or you'll start to kind of understand the rest of them much, much easier because the layouts are very cohesive, and kind of the user experience is very much the same. Well, it's the kind of the same thing in terms of Autodesk products. If you get really good at CAD, Revit will certainly be a lot easier for you. If you get really good at Revit, you'll kind of understand CAD pretty well as you move forward with that. But that's also just kind of general knowledge of CAD software and kind of construction will help you using these types of programs. Okay, I probably won't really talk much about the kind of the construction side of this. That's not really the focus. The focus is more of just understanding the layout of AutoCAD and understanding probably, like the 15 basic functions and tools of the software. If you can get to know those 15 basic tools, you can do a lot of things in AutoCAD. AutoCAD is a very complex program, yet very easy at the same time. It's just, broken down into line work. That's all it is. But you have a variety of tools and how you place that line work onto your canvas, if you will. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to click on the little A up here. The little A is going to kind of be your typical, open, save as, all of those types of all those types of functions that you typically see in most pieces or in all software. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to click on is we're going to click on New. Okay, so we're going to go from the A in the upper left-hand corner, and we're going to click on New to create a new document. Okay. So just like some of the other software we've used, and just like Revit as well, it will ask you to create a template, okay? Or it'll ask you to pick a template to start with, all right? We're gonna go ahead and just use the basic AutoCAD template, which is the default one that is chosen, okay? So you don't have to pick any of these other templates that you have listed here, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and hit open. All right, just curious, I'm pretty sure I asked this before, but how many people here have, pretty good CAD experience or are comfortable using the software? One, so I know you told me that you showed me some drawings that you've done in the past, which is great, and we have some more experience in the back. Okay, good. So hopefully we'll all learn a bunch of stuff from this. Okay, so let's first start out by just kind of going over just the basic user experience of the software. Let's kind of look at how things are laid out, where things are located, and how the software works. Okay. So if you come up here to the upper left-hand corner, we've already looked at the A, or the Autodesk symbol, or I guess you could say the AutoCAD symbol, as the Revit symbol is just a big blue R. But let's look at some of our other functions. If you click on the red A symbol, okay? If you scroll down in the drop-down menu, you'll have your new document. You'll have your ability to open a new document, save as, import, export drawings, okay? So a lot of these you'll probably recognize from other pieces of software that we've looked at. We also have the publish and print option. Publish being for if you want to publish a big old set of drawings and you have like 50 AutoCAD files where you can kind of publish them all at one time to be able to create kind of a larger package. You can do the same thing with print, but more about that a little bit later, okay? I won't really talk about these much as these are all basically the same as most pieces of software, okay? The more important part of AutoCAD is understanding the ribbon and also understanding our toolbar or our typing command toolbar at the very bottom of the page, okay? So if you go up to our upper ribbon right here, you're going to notice two different rows of commands. Okay, the upper one is going to be where you see home, insert, annotate, parametric, etc. If you click on any of those options, you'll be given a whole larger, much broader range of selections. Okay, and this is a common feature with most Autodesk pieces of software. If you're familiar with Revit, you'll notice that it's laid out pretty much the exact same way, but with different commands, okay? And if you've used any other Autodesk software, that's pretty much how they kind of organize a majority of their software, okay? What we'll concentrate most in this class is gonna be this home button. That's where you're gonna be given all of your basic drawing tools, okay? We'll also look at insert, annotate, which will include a lot of our text functions, dimensions, etc. But for the most part, we're not going to look at a majority of these other tools, as probably 90% of the drawing functions will be found under the home ribbon. Okay, so if you go down from home, you'll be given a whole slew of other tools. Okay, and additional drop-down menus. Okay. Right here, right directly underneath home, you're given line, polyline, circle, arc, along with rectangle and a handful of other features. That's probably what you're going to be using a majority of the time. All right, you'll find yourself using those quite a bit. You can also click on some of these other little drop-down menus if you need additional tools. Okay, you'll notice one here called spline. And various other tools. I don't use a ton of these kind of in my typical AutoCAD use, but you will come into times when you do have to use those. And if you're kind of interested in organizing your ribbon in a manner that fits you better, you can actually kind of rearrange those up onto your ribbon with the tools that you use more often. All right. If you move over from draw, you'll notice a bunch of tools called modify. These are probably going to be the next greatest amount of usage in terms of kind of your of all the tools that you use in the software. Okay, so that's going to be under modify. So you have tools like move, rotate, trim, erase. Let's see, copy, mirror, fillet, explode, sketch, chamfer, scale. So we'll talk about a bunch of those today and our next class as well. And moving down the line, you also have text and dimension. So a lot of what you see here under annotation, you will also find if you click on annotate. But the reason why they put it under the home tab is because they're giving you the most frequently used tools right here in one ribbon. Okay, so you're not having to go back and forth between the ribbons constantly. Okay. Moving on from annotation, you're going to notice another little area called layers. Just like InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop, AutoCAD also works in layers. Okay, so you use layers to be able to organize all of the different line works that you have. You're going to have a layer for your exterior walls, for your interior walls. You're going to have a layer for your doors, your windows. You'll have a layer for everything so that you can easily turn things on and off as you need to. You'll realize that we won't get into any complex drawings by any means in this course, but what I'll actually do next class, I'll bring in a construction document package. I'll bring something that we've actually, my office has submitted to the city, and you can kind of get an idea how complex these packages really get. We have some packages in my office, for example, when we did the Livermore outlets, that there were 500 sheets in one package, and that's just architectural. Then you have structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and it goes on and it goes on. So you can have when we were done printing that entire set of documents, it was probably this tall. There's that much printing involved. When we submitted for when I worked at the firm in San Francisco and we submitted for Broadway Plaza, it's probably twice that much. So you realize how much drawing is actually involved in terms of an actual set of construction documents. So I'll bring that in for you guys to kind of look at, just so you have an idea of what a set of construction documents looks like, and you can also get an idea about really how detailed some of these architectural drawings really get. Okay, and you can ask me any questions about those or the technical side if you'd like. Okay. So anyways, back to layers. As I said, layers are kind of work in AutoCAD just like they would work in the Adobe products that we've been talking about for the last 10 weeks. Okay, so more to come on layers. Next, you have a category called blocks, where you're going to insert other AutoCAD files, where you might insert basically pre-made objects that you're going to bring in to assist you in your drawing. So just like in the other pieces of software that we use, once you create something one time, what a lot of companies do is they create things called blocks so that they can insert them into their drawing so they're not constantly recreating them, okay? So for example, I might have a block for like a sink or a bathtub or something. So once it's been drawn, I can save that block, and if I'm drawing a floor plan for a bathroom, I can just quickly insert these already pre-made elements. If you've already made them once, no need to go and reinvent the wheel and try to create them again, okay? We also have properties. You also have groups, utilities, clipboard. We'll talk about all of these a little bit later on. Something to keep in mind is that actually if I was to expand this to full screen, the ribbon would look a little bit different, as I also would be I'd have a little bit more real estate on my screen. As I said earlier, I'm not doing that just because the screen recording software is kind of limiting me at this particular moment to do this. But if you were to expand your screen to a full size, your ribbon will look just a little bit different. Okay, so as you make this smaller and larger, the ribbon will kind of compress itself and enlarge itself depending on the screen size that it has to work with. Okay. Another thing to keep in mind is that your kind of user experience or your ribbon may look a little bit different than what you see on my screen, in the sense that other people who are using your computer may have tweaked things to kind of make it work a little bit better for themselves. They typically don't do that much, but if I'm doing something on the screen and things are arranged a little bit differently on yours, that's probably why AutoCAD is set up so that everyone that uses it has their own way that they like to work, and they like to arrange things, and they like certain colors to be a certain way. So it is possible that you may have a piece of software that someone has tweaked those things. I don't think a majority of the people that use AutoCAD in this class are quite at that level to where they're going to be fussy about the way that their AutoCAD looks on their screen, but it is possible. Okay. So something to kind of keep in mind, or actually not really to keep in mind, but one thing that's a little bit different about the Adobe software, and as you move on to AutoCAD, is we're now working with a very dark layout. Notice that my screen is nearly black. Okay, the lines that you draw on your screen will be white. Okay, and the reason why that is because originally when AutoCAD started, the screen, I believe, was actually white at one point, and they switched it to black to kind of actually help out with eye fatigue. Okay, so kind of funny that Revit actually doesn't do that by default, but it is an option if you want to do that. But that's why the screen is dark. So just because your lines are white, or your lines are blue or red or whatever color they are, doesn't mean that that's the way that they will necessarily print. So whatever your lines are on the screen, they will print black. So don't, for those that haven't used CAD before, don't worry about the different colors of the lines that you will encounter. Okay, so that's just kind of a brief little history on why the AutoCAD user interface is the way that it is. The fact is that a lot of people that use AutoCAD are staring at their computer screen for 8 to 10 hours a day. So and it does take a toll on your eyes over time. I actually, when I do look at my screen for probably 8 hours a day before I come here, and it's a little bit different. My eyes actually take a little time. You guys are actually a little blurry to me right now, even though I have perfect vision. But because I'm staring at this distance all day, it's that's just kind of one of the design features of the software. So let's look at a couple more things. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, you're going to notice this little ribbon down here that says type a command. Okay, so the nice thing about AutoCAD is, yes, you do have all of these tools that are up here in your ribbon, and you can get through using the software without typing any commands. Is it efficient? No, it's not. The people that are really good and really fast at AutoCAD, they're typing in all their commands. So for every one of these tools that you see up here in the ribbon, there is a command that you can type in. Okay, for example, line, I could click on the button that says line, and I could start to draw I could start to draw lines on my screen. But you can also type in just L, or you can type in line, and that would work the exact same way. The goal is that you're not going between your mouse and you want to go from your mouse to your keyboard as least frequent as possible. Okay, so you're not, the more and more you can kind of use your fingers and not have to go use your mouse to click on things, the more efficient you'll become at using the software. It does take a long time though to get to that point. I am not even up to that point. I'm pretty quick, and I start to, once I use the software, every once in a while I'll get pulled into doing construction documents, and I'll have to start using AutoCAD a lot more than I typically do. But you start to get in kind of a groove of things, and you'll start to move a lot quicker. And learning those shortcuts and learning those commands will help you with that. Okay, so I'll tell you what those shortcuts are. You can also go on Google and you can type in basic AutoCAD shortcuts, and it will give you all of them. You can also just type in I believe you can type in shortcut, and it will give you all of it'll give you every single shortcut that's currently in the system. On top of that, if you wanted to change those shortcuts to something that you like a little bit better, you can certainly do that. I'm not going to talk about how to do that because I don't think we'll really need to get to that point. But it just kind of becomes an efficiency thing for those that use the software a lot. If you think about, if you saved yourself 5 minutes a day for an entire year by becoming a little bit more efficient, that equates to probably a couple days or maybe even a week of time of working. So efficiency is very important, and that's why people that strictly do drafting, they strictly use CAD all day long, and they're super efficient at using the software, and that's why they do that, because that's all it is that they do. Okay, so that's going to be our typing command. You do not have to click on this actual bar to start using it. You can just start typing at any given point, and the command will get going. Okay, so for example, line, type in line, enter, and it will start to let you create that line. I can type in C, and I can hit enter, and I can create a circle. Okay, if you hover, actually I don't know if this does it like Revit does. Oh, it does. Okay, so if you hover your mouse over the tools, it will tell you what the command is to type. Okay, so right here, line is just simply line. Okay, if you want to know the shortcut, the shortcut is just L. It does not give you the shortcut, but for Polyline, you're not going to type in Polyline. Okay, you're going to type in P-line. Okay, and there's basically a shorter version of all the text. So a lot of them are just a single character. Okay, so it'll take some time to get used to that. All right. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a rundown on what this typing bar is. As you type things onto your screen, you will notice that they will automatically type on this little bar down at the very bottom. Okay, and often when you are typing commands, so for example, if I type in L, enter, it will then, on this little bar down here, it will give you, basically, it'll ask you or tell you what kind of the next step is, okay? So when I typed in line, it said specify first point, okay? So from there on my screen, I would specify what my first point of my line is. Some certain commands, like if I type in ARCH, it gives you one other command here. I can type in C for center. I'm trying to find another one. Okay, so right here when I click on rectangle, notice that it also gives me several other options on how I obtain my rectangle. Okay, we'll talk about a handful of these, but for the most part, you'll probably need to kind of experiment on your own on what some of those do. Okay, so it tells you can create a chamfered rectangle, an elevation rectangle, a fillet rectangle. More later about what those mean. Okay. So moving on, and then kind of the user experience, you've probably heard the terms paper space and model space before. Model space being where you're doing all of your drawing, and paper space being where you're laying out your sheets. Okay, so you've all seen construction, or you've probably seen examples of construction documents before, but at some point you're going to need to put your drawing onto a large format sheet of paper, 24 inches by 36 inches, 30 by 42. etc. There's a dozen different sheet formats that you'll work with over your careers. So that's layout 1 and layout 2. Those are examples of your paper space. We'll get to more of that, I believe, in our 3rd lecture, and we'll talk about how to set up a sheet in AutoCAD. But for the most part, we're going to do all of our modeling here in Model Space, and you'll do a lot of your annotations and a lot of your text, both in Model Space and also in Paper Space. Okay. Moving on down the line over here, you're going to notice your last little ribbon. You're going to have a bunch of little commands about Model Space or Paper Space. A lot of these are linked to other commands that are up here in your upper ribbon. But you can control things like your scale. You can control your snaps. Feel free just to kind of hover over a lot of these, several of which will come up in our lecture. So I'll come back to a handful of these. Okay. When you are drawing, when you're drawing in, for example, Illustrator and InDesign, you're often not drawing things at the full scale. When you're working in Illustrator and in InDesign, you can often draw things at a very reduced scale, knowing that you're creating a vector graphic, right? So you're creating a vector graphic, and you can expand that graphic to whatever size you want. Well, when you work in AutoCAD, you're going to work in full scale, okay? You're going to draw things at the actual size that they are in real life, okay? So if you're drawing a 24-foot long wall, you're going to draw a 24-foot line. Okay, so you're drawing everything in the real size scale that you're working with. Okay. Let's see. Anything that I'm skipping over? I think that's pretty good. So let's start to kind of go into some of our basic commands. Here, let me look at my little outline just to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything. So before you go in to start your first assignment, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to type in units, okay? So I just typed in UNITS, units, and you're going to hit enter, okay? When you hit enter, you're going to get this little dialog box that pops up. All that's asking you is what units do you want to work in, okay? It gives you the choice of architectural, decimal, engineering, fractional, scientific. So as architects are not the only ones using AutoCAD, there are several other unit types that you can work in. Since we work in feet and inches, we would be working in architectural, okay? But a lot of like civil engineers and other types of engineers will work in decimal, right? So I frequently get drawings all the time that are in different units, but you can convert them once you get to that point. Sometimes it requires a little bit of scaling, but it's always fixable.
How do you open that?
Okay, do it one more time.
Yeah.
Okay. So right now we're just kind of in our basic. We're in model space right now. I'm just going to go ahead and type in units. Okay, and I will hit enter. You're always going to hit enter at the end of every command. Okay, enter initiates that command. Okay, so we're going to change the unit type to architectural. Okay, we're going to leave the angle to degrees. The way that it currently is fine. The next thing to look at is it says precision. Well, AutoCAD is capable of extremely precise units of measurement. Okay, if you click on the precision button, you'll notice that it goes all the way down to 256 of an inch. Okay, you can't even see that with the naked eye. That is just so incredibly small. But you know what? There are industries that need that. If you're creating, for example, a part for a car, that part for that car has to be perfect. It cannot be, even 1/100th of a fraction of an inch off from what it's supposed to be. Okay, these are like scientifically milled objects that have to be, down to that precision. So there are uses for this, but we're going to leave it at a 1/16th of an inch. The reason why we leave it at a 1/16th of an inch is because, when you're out building something in real life, you're not going to build something to, a precision greater than a 1/16th of an inch. And even a 1/16th of an inch is pushing it. If I gave a contractor drawings that were down to, if I gave him a wall that was 6 feet 4 and, 5/16th of an inch, he would walk off the job and leave. So, but we do have it. We do want to be able to have that capability. The only time that you'll really work within that precision is if you're doing like a detail drawing that by chance might get to that precision. But for the most part, we're going to work in like whole and half inches, maybe quarter of an inch. But we'll leave the precision at 1/16 of an inch. Okay. Everything else here is good. As soon as you change this to architectural, you can go ahead and hit OK. All right, so now all of our units that we work with will be with, you know, inches and feet, units that we are all familiar with. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, AutoCAD is a vector program. Okay, so just like Illustrator and just like InDesign, when you export a document out of this, you know, it's actually kind of nice is you can bring it into Illustrator and you can bring it into InDesign too, and you can actually make edits to that AutoCAD file because they're all, you know, vector software. So why would we think that AutoCAD, or why is it that AutoCAD is a vector software? Any idea? Why do they care so much? Why do we need to export this as a vector file and not, for example, a JPEG?
Because of the scale. They need to scale it or just enlarge it or swallow it.
Exactly. Yeah. You want to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say because depending on what skill you have and depending on what it is, sometimes you have to be able to, I guess, zoom in and still have that quality, or zoom out and still have the same quality.
Exactly. Exactly. You hit it right. You hit it right on the head. So, you know, one of my consultants might send me a drawing. I need to be able to look at that either on this screen. I need to be able to look at it on a full-size document. I may need to print it out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. The point is I want to be able to scale it at any scale that I can imagine, and I want it to still be a nice crisp line. Okay, so it's extremely important, especially imagine yourself being a contractor and being out on the field, maybe with an iPad, and you're zooming in on drawings and you're looking at all of these different things that are happening. You need that, you know, nice crisp line work so that things don't get blurry. If you export things as a JPEG, you will run into some problems later on down the road. Okay. All right. Let's see. So moving on, let's start to experiment with a couple of our. Actually, before we start with a couple of our commands, let's open up. If we open up our assignments right here. Okay, let's go to assignment number 18. You will notice that I provided right here under step 2, I provided a sample floor plan. Okay, so if we click on that sample floor plan, it will of course download, and we will open that up, and you will notice that I have given you the dimensions that you need to create our first assignment. Okay. I see a hand raised? Yeah, go ahead.
I noticed some of the dimensions on the windows are missing.
I don't. Yeah, we don't give you every single dimension. Actually, all of these windows are exactly the same. So notice that this one is called out as 2 feet. Right. All of these windows are actually 2 feet. This one is called out as 4 feet. So if usually I think actually everything is dimensioned at least one time. So that's kind of a standard architectural practice in a drawing. You will typically dimension something one time. And once you dimension it one time, it's because you'll realize that once you get to a complex drawing that you'll have a million lines on a screen. And if you can prevent yourself from, you know, duplicating work and duplicating dimensions, you certainly would do that. So you'll often see things dimensioned only one time, or at least enough that you can see the kind of the repetitious module in the drawing. Okay, and typically if contractors have questions, they'll just shoot you an email and ask you. So anyways, you can download this sample drawing. That's what we'll be working with today for our assignment. What you'll need to do by next class is you will need to recreate this drawing you see here. All right. We're not going to worry about layers at this point. We're going to go ahead and just work on just the standard 0 layer that is given to you by default. All right. So we'll talk a little bit more about layers in the future. Okay. But we're going to be working with this today. So I'm going to download this, and I actually want to rotate it the other way. The way that I actually prefer to draw this. So let me download this. Let's save this to my desktop. give me just a second. I'm just going to rotate this to the way that I kind of would like to see this.
So you drag it here, and like this one here.
Okay, so this is kind of how I want to view this as we move forward. Okay, so let's start to learn some of the basic commands here. Okay, so the first one that we're going to learn is just the basic line tool. So as I mentioned earlier, what we're going to do is we're going to type in L. L is for line. You can also just type in line. Okay, and you'll notice that it asks you, the first thing that it asks you to do is to specify an insertion point. Okay, so as we start to lay down our first line, you'll notice that when you are drawing, that you'll notice that your lines start to kind of snap into certain increments. Okay, so as I move my mouse around, notice that it snaps in this direction, it will snap in this direction, and it will snap in all of your basic orthogonal directions. Okay, what this is doing, or this is in AutoCAD is referring to as ortho, O-R-T-H-O. What that actually does is it keeps you into drawing in 90 and 45 kind of degree angles. Right now that's not currently activated, as I can draw on any angle that I want. But as I move around my mouse, notice that it, as I move it down this little green line, notice that it's giving me a dimension. Okay, so it's saying this is 8 5/16 of an inch. And it also says I'm also drawing at a 90 degree angle. Okay, so as I move my mouse around, that angle will change, as will my dimension. Okay, so as you move your cursor around and you want to start to draw your walls, you're going to just move the mouse kind of in the direction that you want the line to go. For example, if I want to kind of draw, let's look at my house here. I want to maybe draw this first wall over here. We can see here that this is actually, I think this is 1'6". So actually this is, I think, 2 feet. So 2 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 7 plus 1 is 8 plus 2 is 10 plus 2 is 12 feet. So our first line is going to be 12 feet long. Okay, so if I move my mouse over here to the right, I can simply just type in 1, 2, and I'm going to put in the feet symbol. Okay, unlike Revit has kind of moved on to a point where you don't need to put in feet and inches, but in AutoCAD you will need to specify feet and inches. Okay, so if I want a 12-foot line, I will just type in 12 feet and I will type in enter. Okay, and you'll notice that I have a 12-foot line. Okay, I've also run into a little scenario here where I can't actually see, obviously if I expanded my screen I would be able to see all of my line, but an easy command to be able to kind of zoom out and see everything clearly is I can type in the Z command or actually I'm going to hit escape first, but if I type in Z for zoom, I can hit enter, and I can type in EX for extents. Okay, and what that does is it zooms for that, or whatever you have on your screen, to fill the entire screen. Okay, so there's actually, it pretty much works kind of the same way in the Adobe software as well. So that's going to be the zoom extents tool. Kind of the weird things is when you're actually in the middle of using a tool, it doesn't allow you to kind of have the full extents of your zooming. But as soon as you hit escape on your keyboard, it will allow you to zoom in and out on your line. Okay, so that's going to be your basic line tool. All right, so again, you can click on the line button up here in your ribbon, or you can type in line or L for short, which is our shortcut, and you can see that you will start to be able to draw any of the shapes that you want. To kind of practice this, I would just kind of do this as I'm talking about it. Just kind of put some lines onto your model space and kind of get a feel for how that's working. Try inputting some dimensions as well. Just like our other pieces of software, if you type in Control Z will undo whatever the previous command you put in was. Okay, so if you mess something up and you need to kind of fix that, you can always hit Control Z, just like all of the other pieces of software that we created. Okay, so that's going to be the line tool. If you notice when you use the line tool, and I'm going to create a bunch of different lines here, all right, so we'll kind of pretend this is our house here. If you notice about this line tool, notice that all of my lines are individual line segments, okay? So that is going to be the difference between using the line command and using the polyline command. The difference between the two is that polyline is one long continuous line, whereas line is going to be individual line segments, okay? So the nice thing about the polyline is if I kind of know the perimeter of my building, I can go through and I can quickly outline the perimeter of my building. So I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's about 12 feet. Let's see, was that 12? Oh, that was actually 12 inches. Let me back up. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 12 feet. And then, you know, if I know other dimensions of my house, which I do. So we have 6 feet, then 12 feet, then 12. Okay, so I can then go down another 6 feet. Then I can go over 12 feet and go down 12 feet, and I could continue. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape to go ahead and exit this command. So right now I'm still using the command. I can continue to draw additional lines if I want to, but I'm always going to exit a certain command by hitting the escape button. Okay, so I'm going to hit escape, but now notice if I click on this line is one continuous line. Okay, so you'll kind of have to judge yourself when it's appropriate to kind of have one continuous line versus having multiple instances of line. I like to have a nice polyline when I'm doing the outer perimeter of my building. It's a little easier to kind of manipulate your line kind of at the larger scale when you use a P-line. Okay, so that's going to be kind of the difference between line and polyline. Okay, so some of our other tools include circle. Okay, so when I click on my circle, notice that the circle obviously gets bigger, but what it's asking me to do is to put in a radius. Okay, so right now it's as I get bigger and bigger, it's saying that my radius is about 6 feet, 7 feet, and I could input, you know, any dimension that I want, and I'll get a perfect radius. If you click on the little drop-down menu under circle, you'll get different options of how you create the circle. Okay, the first one is going to be center radius, which is the default in AutoCAD. The second one is center diameter. So instead of inputting, if for example I want to not input a radius and I want to instead input a diameter, I can do that. So it just depends on how you want to work, okay? And there's several other versions. I'm not going to talk about these as I usually don't use them, but just depending on how you use AutoCAD, you may have a reason for needing to input, you know, a tangent, another tangent, and then a radius to get some more complex shapes. But that definitely falls into the category of kind of more advanced AutoCAD techniques, okay? The next tool that we see here is we see the ARCH command, okay? So you'll need to do that for, you know, for example, when you create your door swings, okay? And I'll go through here in just a second and I'll actually kind of create a little portion of our house, okay? And I'll show you how to create one of our door swings up here. Okay, so let's go back, and what I'm going to start out with is I'm going to start out by using the polyline tool again, and I'm going to create the outer perimeter of the house. Okay, so I could probably, after doing this a few times, I may have this memorized by now. So we're going to start out by going 12 feet, and I'm going to go kind of quick on this. Okay, 6 feet, and then 12 feet, and then 12 feet. Oops, it's 122, and then back to 12. And we're going to go back down 6, 12, and then 24. Okay, so I'm going to go back down 6 feet, and I'm going to go back over 12 feet, and I'm going to go back up 24 feet. Notice that when I bring my mouse up to this top line, notice that my mouse brings up this little green square. Okay, what's happening right now is that my line is snapping to the end of this line. AutoCAD is telling you that the lines are connected. Okay, so if I click my mouse down right here where you see that little green square, you know that you have a perfect connection. Okay, that's called object snaps. All right, so there's a variety of different snapping tools. For example, right now I can only snap to my endpoints. Okay, notice that as I bring my line around, I'm only able to snap to the ends of the lines, okay? Well, if we go down to our bottom ribbon over here, let's see, where are my snaps? Here, I will actually come back to this in a second because this is a little bit different than my work computer. As I mentioned, everyone kind of has their own way of their AutoCAD layout. This is a little different than how I work in my office, but notice that when I bring my mouse up to the top that this snaps to that line, okay? So now that I've completed the outer perimeter of my house, I can go ahead and hit escape, and if I hover my mouse over my line, notice that I have one large line, okay? If I type in OSNAP, so OSNAP, notice that as I type in just the first couple of letters that all of my commands are popping up here. Usually when you type in the first couple letters of the command that you want to find, it will usually pop up right away, okay? So I can go ahead and click on OSNAP, and notice that right now the only snaps that are activated are my endpoints and the center of a circle and an intersection, okay? So if I want to be able to snap to a midpoint, I'm going to have to be able to go here into my snap settings and actually turn on the different areas to which I want to be able to snap to. So notice that I just clicked on midpoint, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And if I type in L for line, notice that this little triangle pops up when I move to the center of that line. What that's doing is my cursor is snapping to the midpoint of that line, okay? And again, you can go in and you can turn on various different snap kind of methods to which your cursor will snap to, okay? Kind of the most frequent ones are gonna be your endpoints and your midpoints. But you might also have things like intersections where lines might converge, and various other snapping points, okay? So now that we've drawn the perimeter of our house, we need to give our walls a little bit of depth, okay? So from here, I'm gonna use a command called offset, okay? So if I type in O, by just typing in O, you will notice that the offset command has appeared, okay? I don't even need to click on it. I can just type in O, and I could hit enter, okay? So that's gonna activate the offset command. Yeah?
I think you said you escaped the commands.
You just hit escape. Okay, so you'll always start using the command by typing the command or typing the shortcut, then hitting enter, then you will use the command, and then you'll always end the command by hitting escape, okay? So I've just, now we have the perimeter of our building, okay? Right now it's just represented by a single polyline, all right? So we need to give our wall a little bit of depth, okay? So we all know that walls have some thickness to them, right? So if I type in the command O, which stands for offset, I can go ahead and hit enter. And the next thing that it's prompting me to do here and up there, it's saying to specify the offset distance, okay? So, for this class, we're going to go ahead and just say that our exterior wall is 6 inches. If you get into technical terms, that wall thickness could completely vary. All right, it could be anywhere from 4 inches all the way up to a foot, 14, 16 inches. Walls could be very thick. Interior walls that you might have in your house are typically like 4.5 inches. Actually, I take that back. I think they're like 5.
6 sometimes.
Well, if you're using a 2x4 as your basic, 2x4 is 3.5 inches, and you have gypboard that's 5 1/8 of an inch, it comes out to about 5. I think it comes out to exactly 5 1/4 inches. So if you go measure your interior walls, they're probably 5 1/4 of an inch thick. Okay, but for simplicity, we're going to stick with 6 inches, okay? I would probably do all of your exterior walls at 6 inches, and as you start to develop your plans later on down the road, you might do your interior walls as 4 inches, okay? So now that we've typed in O for offset, it's going to say specify offset distance. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in 6, and then I'm going to do the inches symbol, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so I've specified the offset distance to be 6 inches, okay? Now, if I hover my mouse over my line, I'm going to click on my line, and notice that when I move my mouse either on one side of the line or the other, what it's doing is it's going to take that line that you originally had, and it's going to offset it exactly the distance that you've specified, okay? So one of the nice things about creating a polyline instead of multiple line segments here is that I'm able to offset the entire line as a whole as opposed to offsetting about a dozen lines several times, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to offset this inwards 6 inches. For this particular exercise, it doesn't really matter, but remember that when we actually, it kind of does matter. When we originally drew our outer perimeter walls, we drew them per this document, which is measuring everything from the outside corners, okay? So we're going to go ahead and offset our line 6 inches inside, okay? So now notice that our house now has a nice 6-inch thick wall, okay? So from here, we're probably going to need to add a door, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and use my line command, and I'm going to let my cursor snap to this, to the middle of this line, and I'm going to draw that down 6 inches, okay? Well, for those of you that have kind of worked in maybe construction a little bit, most doors are going to be 3 feet wide, okay? A 3-foot wide door is the typical ADA accessible door. All of these doors are probably all 3 feet. That's probably maybe even a little bit bigger because that might be like a closet. Some of these double doors are going to be 6 feet, but most doors are going to be 3 feet. Some of your like restroom doors or closet doors at home might be 2'6", okay? But again, for simplicity, we're going to go ahead and say all doors are 3 feet. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to need to create a 3-foot opening for our door. So I'm going to go ahead and use the offset command again, except this time I'm going to offset this line 1 foot 6 inches, okay? And I'm going to offset this line on both sides, okay? So I just clicked on the line. I'll go ahead and do that one more time. Control Z back up. So O, enter, 1 foot 6 inches. Enter. Okay, so I'm going to click on the object that I want to offset, which is this line right here, and I'm going to just move my cursor over to the side that I want to offset it. Okay, I can click on that line again because I'm still in the command right now. Okay, I've not hit escape yet, and I could still use the command multiple times. Okay, so I'm going to click on that line again. I'm going to offset it to the other side. All right, so now I know I have a 3-foot wide door that is centered on this wall. Okay, so from here I can hit escape and I can exit that command and I could click on that middle line and delete it because I don't need it anymore. Yeah?
But how do you get it to, you know that it's right in the center?
So that's going to be your object snap. So if you go over and you type in OS, that will bring up the offset command. OS is the shortcut for O snaps. Okay, and if you hit enter, you want to make sure that midpoint is checked. Okay, if midpoint is not checked, your cursor will not snap to the middle of that line. Okay, so when you type in a command like L for line, notice that that little triangle comes up. That triangle is telling you that you are snapping to the midpoint of that line. Okay? All right, the next command that we're going to learn is the trim command. Okay, so if you type in T, actually TR is going to be the shortcut for trim. You're going to go ahead and hit enter. All right, so by doing that, we're going to learn a little bit about a couple different types of commands or a couple different other things related to AutoCAD, and that's going to be how you select objects. Okay, so notice that right now after I typed in TR for trim, it's telling you to select the objects. It says select objects that you want to trim. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click one time and I'm going to select the region that I want to trim. Okay, so notice the difference from bringing my mouse down from right to left. If I move it down like this, notice that notice that I'm getting a blue square. Okay, if I move my mouse up and to the left, notice that I'm getting a green square. Okay, the difference between those two is if I select things using the blue square, what that's going to do is it's only going to select lines that are fully inside the blue square. Okay, so notice that right now this line and this line are highlighting. That's because these are the only 2 lines amongst the lines that are around it that are fully inside that blue square. Okay, notice that if I was to select, if I was to, let me type that in again. If I was to drag my mouse this way, notice now that all of the lines are selected, because the difference between the blue and the green selection is that when you're using the green selection, it will select every line that is inside that green box, okay? So you have a little bit more kind of selection precision by using the blue box, but if you want to kind of select a large group as a whole, you would select everything using the green box. So again, the blue box will select only the items inside your selection marquee, and the green box is going to select everything that is touching or going through the green square, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and select everything for here. So when I use the trim tool, I want to select all of the objects that are related to the area that I want to trim, okay? Guys, if we could talk, not talk in the back, it echoes very easily up here. So I'm going to select all of the objects that are kind of in the area that I want to trim. My goal for using this command is to actually get rid of the area between the door, okay? We want to create a walkway. So if by selecting that entire area, I can go ahead and now hit enter, and now it tells you to select the object to trim, okay? So now I'm going to go over and I'm going to click on the lines that I want to trim, okay? So notice that when I click on that line, it deletes everything from one endpoint to another, okay? It doesn't trim any, or it doesn't delete, it doesn't delete anything beyond that line. Okay, so I'm going to do that one more time. All right, so I'm going to type in TR for trim. I'm going to select all of the objects that I want to trim from. Okay, so I've selected all of these lines right here. I'm now going to hit enter, and it now tells me to select the objects that I want to trim. So notice that when I hover my mouse over this line, it's telling me that it's going to trim this line. Notice that it does not go any further beyond those corners. Okay? Yeah?
You get the lines to go perpendicular. Every time I offset it, it wants to like add another layer around the border.
Oh, how did I get this line right here?
Yeah.
I drew that line in. So you're offsetting the original building footprint line that we created. So you're going to want to go through and add these lines. So you probably have something that looks like that, okay? So I just used the line tool. I snapped to the middle of that wall, and then I offsetted that line 1.5 feet on both sides.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay? All right, so then I'm going to use my trim tool to trim out the middle of my doorway. Okay, so again, TR, I'm going to select all of these lines. I'm going to hit enter, and I could either click on both of these, or I can just simply make one selection and click on them both. So it will take you time to get to the point where you're kind of doing this efficiently. It will seem very slow and kind of tedious at first, but you'll get to the point where you're just kind of drawing and deleting lines like clockwork. So, but it does take time. Don't let it frustrate you. It's okay. That's why the assignments aren't super complicated at this point. Okay. So now we have an opening. Okay, we have an opening for our door. So the next thing that we're going to need to draw is we're going to need to draw the actual door. All right. So I can do this two ways. I can either draw this using my rectangle tool, or I can draw my line tool. All right. I'll do it first by using the line tool. Or the Polyline tool. Actually, Polyline would be better. It's always easier to kind of have certain elements to be all grouped together. So for example, if you think of a door as just a basic rectangle, it's a lot better to click on that door and it be one line versus 4 lines, because that's just more things that you have to select later on down the road. So I'm going to click on Polyline. I'll start here at my door edge, okay? And my door is 3 feet tall. So I'm just going to type in 3 feet. I'm going to go over, a typical door is about 1 3/4 of an inch. You can make it 1.5 or 2, or whatever you want is fine. I'm going to type in 1.75 inches, and then I will go back up 3 feet, and I will complete my door. Okay, and I will now hit escape, And notice that when I click on my door, that is a single object. Where if I was to use the line tool, it will look exactly the same, but I will have 4 lines, okay? And you want to kind of reduce the amount of lines you can, as much as possible, okay? The other way that you could do this is you could use your rectangle tool. All right, so you can click on rectangle. It asks you to specify the first point. Then it asks you to specify the other corner point, which would just be 3 feet. All right, so, sorry, that's not what I wanted. I actually wanted that to be 3 feet by, so I'm going to go 3 feet, comma, 1.75 inches. Okay, so that just made it the wrong way, but I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. Here's my rotate tool. I can rotate this down 90 degrees. So, other way, geez. It'd actually be negative 90 degrees. Okay, so rotate and negative 90 degrees. All right. So just like a lot of the other software we've used, there's typically multiple ways that you can get to the end result. So it's up to you to kind of determine what that most efficient way is. By determining those efficient ways, you'll get better and better at AutoCAD. Okay. So the next line that we're going to create is going to be the door swing of our door. Okay. So looking at this right here, you will notice that we have a nice arc that represents our door swing. Okay. So if I go under arc, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that little drop down menu, and what I'm going to click on is I'm going to click on start end direction. Okay, there's several different ways you can create the arc, but to create our door swing, we're going to click on start end direction. Okay, so as soon as you click on that command, it says to specify the starting point of the arc. Well, the starting point of my arc is going to be the corner of my door. Okay, right here. All right, and then the next thing it tells you to do is to specify an end point of the arc. Okay, so that's going to be right here. It's going to be the opposite end of my door frame. Okay, so I'll click there as my second point, and then from there, all you're going to do is specify a direction. Okay, so notice if I just move my cursor over to the right, it's going to create a perfect arc at a nice smooth tangent. Okay, if I move my cursor over to the other side, it starts to create a perfect circle. But I'm going to move my cursor over to the right to where it gives me a nice perfect arc. Okay,
so that's like using circle.
You could use a circle. So I think you're probably talking about going like this. Wait, no. You would want to use, I actually don't ever do it like that, but I suppose you could. How would you do that? Would you do a 2-point circle?
No, just C and enter. It's going to give you a 2-point circle. Then
right. C, enter.
Yeah, from this. Yeah, no, to the door itself. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yes, you could do that, and then you could move this.
You can draw a line. From this point.
Yeah, I don't prefer that, so I'm already seeing that as more steps than it needs to be. So in AutoCAD, you want it to be the least amount of steps, but it is another way to do it. If you're comfortable with doing it that way, and that's the way you move the fastest, by all means you can do it that way. But when I'm doing a door swing, I will typically use the start end direction. Okay. But let's just look at another one. So for example, if I click on 3-point, which is the default, okay, it tells you to specify a starting point, an end point, and then as I move my cursor around, I can basically get a variety of different angles. Okay, so I could click right here, and that's pretty much a perfect corner. But there's a variety of different ways to create the arc that you need. I would recommend kind of exploring those different options. But to get the nice perfect door arc, I'm going to use start end direction, like so, and click, and there's going to be my door. All right, so let's do a couple more things. We'll learn just a few more commands before we take our break and turn you guys loose. Let's go ahead and create a window. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my line tool or type in L. Notice that when I hover or when I bring my mouse over to this endpoint, notice that I'm getting this little green line right here. Okay, So it's telling me as I move my cursor along the edge of that wall, it's telling me that I know that when I click my mouse, that I know I'm going to be on that wall, okay? But the nice thing about this is, if you notice right here, it's telling me that I'm 8 3/8 of an inch away from that corner, okay? So as I move my mouse down, it's telling me how far away from that corner that I am, okay? So I bring my mouse over, I hover it right above that corner, and as I move it in any one of these directions, looking for that green dashed line, it will tell me how far away from the corner I am, okay? So as soon as I see that and as soon as I get it, if I go over to my floor plan, I notice that my window starts at 1 feet 6 inches from that corner, okay? So if I go here, sorry, my eye's kind of tweaking out, and I move my mouse over, all right, I'm going to just type in 1 foot 6 inches, and notice that it now starts my line at that dimension, okay? So I don't need to try to guess, you know, or try to move my cursor very carefully along that edge until I see exactly 1 foot 6. As soon as you see that green line that kind of shoots out across your screen, you can then just type in the dimension that you want, and you will now be drawing your line from that point, okay? So I now know that the start of my window that I'm about to create is exactly 1 foot 6 inches from that corner, okay? So from there, I can just go down and connect my window, all right? And then it tells me that my window is 2 feet wide, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use my offset command. I'm gonna type in 2 feet, and I will offset that line, sorry, I lose my voice, offset that line over to this side, okay? So we could give a little depth to our windows. A typical window mullion is anywhere from 1, 2, sometimes 3, 4 inches, okay? I'm just gonna go ahead and make it 2 inches. All right, so I'm going to, whoops, that's 2 feet, sorry. So offset, enter, I'm gonna type in 2 inches, and that's going to be my window frame. All right, then I'm gonna go ahead and draw another line, escape, then hit L for line, and I'm going to draw that in the middle of my window frame. So that line represents the window pane, okay? If you wanna take it a step further, starting to really lose my my voice. If I'm going to take it a step further, I could offset this line. Sorry, I'm going to get some water. I'll be right back.
You'll get it down in a week.
So if I wanted to take this a step further, I could offset this line and give the window pane a little bit of depth too, okay? So, you know, we can just kind of say the window pane is maybe like a 1/2 inch thick. So again, I could type in offset. If I know my window pane is a 1/2 inch thick, I'm gonna wanna offset this 0.25 inches in both directions, okay? See how I did that? And then I would delete that middle line. So that's kind of just a basic architectural graphic for a window, all right? So there's our first window. So now to kind of be efficient, let's kind of think about how we can reuse some of these components so that we don't have to draw them again, okay? So the next tool that we're going to learn is we're gonna learn the mirror tool, okay? So if I select my my window that I've created here, which if you want to, you can also, after you select it, you can type in you can type in group, and that will group that whole object together, okay? You don't have to do that, but it might be a little bit easier. All right, from there, I'm gonna type in MI, and that will be the shortcut for mirror, okay? So I hit MI for mirror, I hit enter, and then it's saying specify the first point of the mirror line. So what I'm doing is I'm going to select the point to which I want to mirror my object from. So you're looking for that central axis of where you want to mirror from, okay? So if I look at my PDF, I know that this window is exactly, if I was to place a line down the middle of my door, I would want to mirror that window over to the other side, right down the middle of my door, okay? So being that I don't have a line that I could pick from right here, let's zoom out a little bit, and I actually have a line over here that I can. So I'm going to use that as my mirror line. And notice that as I draw it up, it snaps. That green line pops up. And I click once. It asks you, do you want to erase the source objects? If I hit yes, my original window would disappear. But I'm going to go ahead and hit enter for no. Okay? So now I have my second window. All right? Well, if you look at our plan, we have a window over here, and we also have a window over here, and vice versa down here. So if I wanted to mirror that object again, I could click on my original window, type in MI for mirror, and I'm actually going to mirror it this time at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so I'm going to click from corner to corner here, click. Do you want to erase the source object? I'm going to go ahead and say no, but I've now mirrored that object over here to the other side. Okay, and you can kind of continue to do that around the project and add in some of the additional elements. Okay. To be even more efficient, I could click on these two windows and I can mirror them. I can mirror them on the other side. Okay, so now I have my windows over here. If we look at our PDF, I believe the next window is has a 6-inch gap in between. Okay, so if we know our window is 2 feet wide, we know there's a 6-inch gap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my copy command. So CO is copy. And I'll hit enter, and I'm simply going to drag my window over, but I'm going to drag it over 2 feet 6 inches and hit enter. Okay, this looks a little bit different than what's on the PDF because in the PDF they actually don't give the thickness of the window. Okay, so but that's fine, that looks okay. All right, so any questions about any of the tools that we've used so far? We're pretty good, probably ready to just dive right into it. I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and just really quickly before we go on our break, I want to show you guys how to plot this. Okay, so once you're done with your drawing, all right, so once you're done recreating all this, and you don't need to dimension this, by the way, don't worry about replicating all of this dimensions. Your goal should be to draw all the windows, all the window frames, and all of the doors and openings in this drawing. Okay. So the next thing that you're going to have to do once you're all complete is you're going to have to plot this, okay? You're going to have to create a PDF from the line work that we've created, okay? So to plot this, what you're going to do is you're going to type in PL, or actually probably PLOT, just type in plot. You can also go up here to the corner, you can type in print or plot, all right? So you're going to get this little message saying like what kind of plot do you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and click on continue to plot a single sheet. If I wanted to create multiple sheets, I could click on these other options, but we're just going to create a single sheet. Okay, so from here you're going to get this dialog box right here. All right, if you've ever used Revit before, this probably looks a little familiar. The first thing that you're going to want to do, and I would write this down, okay, because you will probably forget this, as I still forget this even to this day sometimes, but you can also watch this video afterwards if by chance you forget it. All right, so I'm going to click on printer plotter name. I'm going to click on DWG to PDF, okay? You can also click on just Adobe PDF. Either of those would work. Okay, so I'm going to click on DWG to PDF. That's basically just telling you that it's going to take this DWG or this drawing file and convert it to a PDF. Okay, so if I if I go down a little further, it tells you what paper size do you want to plot this at. 8.5 by 11 is fine for this. All right, 8.5 by 11 is fine. But if you click on that, you'll notice a whole slew of paper sizes that we will eventually work with. Today, 8.5 by 11 is fine. Okay. Next, it asks you what do you want to plot. So right now it's currently set to display. So what that means is it's going to plot everything that is in your model space. Okay. So no matter how much stuff you have, it will plot everything that is currently in your view. Okay. So for now that works. You can certainly use display. Another one that I use a lot is window. All right. So if I click on window, I can actually specify the objects that I want to plot. Okay, so where this might come into handy is if you have maybe multiple things on your sheet, but you don't want to plot all of them. You only want to plot a certain portion of it. You can click on window, to which you would simply just click once and you would draw a little window around the area that you want to plot. All right. Moving over to the right, actually we're going to click on center plot. All right, so that just centers. And notice that as I put in these commands, it's giving you a little thumbnail of what that's going to look like. Notice that right now what I'm plotting is fitting inside that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Okay. If it wasn't fitting and what you wanted to plot was too big, you would notice that a big red line on the areas that there are conflict with. Okay, so for example, right now the plot scale is set to fit to paper. Okay, so it doesn't care about what it's telling you is it doesn't care about what the scale is right now. It's making it as large as it can to fit onto that paper. For today, that is okay. You can click on fit to paper. I don't care about the scale of it. I'd rather it be as large as possible for that 8.5 by 11. But you could uncheck that and you could click on a specific scale. Maybe you want this to be 1/8 of an inch is equal to a foot. Notice that the little square that represents our little house has gotten smaller, okay? But let's go even bigger. Let's see what happens when you go up to 1/16. See, it gets even smaller. Let's go up a scale. So we go to quarter. We could actually plot this to perfect 1/4 inch scale, which is okay too. You can do that if you wish. And that would fit onto an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Let's go one size bigger though. Let's go to 1/2 inch scale. Notice that we get these big red lines all around our paper. It's telling you that the drawing that you have created is too large for that sheet of paper. So I would need to reduce the scale of that. So I'll reduce it to 1/4, or you can just click on fit to paper is fine too. Up to you and what you want to do at this point. As we get further along in our drawings, we will be plotting to scale. Okay. The reason why people do that is if a contractor, for example, is out on the field and they need to know, and maybe something is not dimensioned. Well, you have these fun little tools, these fun little scales that kind of look like rulers that they can look at it, and it will tell you how large an object is depending on the scale of the drawing. So I'll bring some of those in next class too, so you guys can get an understanding of what those are. If you're in studio, you probably have one. How many people here are in studio across the way? You guys probably have scales, right? Right. So you probably know how to use them. Okay. So I'm going to click on 1/4 for now. 1/4 inch scale, and that will plot to scale on this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You also have drawing orientation. Do you want to plot this portrait or landscape? Landscape is fine. And everything else here is okay. We'll talk a little bit later about what pen and plot styles are. What I would recommend is once you get all of this set up, especially if you're working on your home computer, to go ahead and as soon as you get all of the properties set up, you can click on Add. Okay, so I can type this. I'm going to call this 8.5 inch. So this is 8.5 by 11 inch plot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Whoops, I can't type in the inches symbol. And what I'm doing right now, so now that I've given this current setup that I've created, I'm giving this a name. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So next time I want to plot something, I could go up here and I will see, for example, I'm going to click on None. Okay, so let me exit out of this. I'm going to go back and I'm going to type in plot, continue. If I go up to page setup, notice that I have that 8.5 by 11 inch plot already set up right here. So if I click on that, all of those settings that I just created will go right back to where you set them. Okay. The downfall about these computers in this class is that unfortunately it wipes out all of those settings at the end of the night. But for those of you that are also working on your laptops or your home computers, you can save these plot styles so that you don't have to go through and memorize all of those things. You can just save them once you know they work the way that you want them to work. Okay. So in my office, for example, if in everybody's computer, they can click on this little drop-down menu, and there will be a perfect plot for every size sheet of paper already set up. So you don't even have to think about what these things are. Okay. So I'm going to click on 8.5 by 11. And once I get all that set up and I'm happy with that, I'm going to hit OK. Just go ahead and hit continue. And you're going to want to save your floor plan to your thumb drive. Okay? So I don't have mine plugged in at the moment, so I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And I'm going to type in, exercise 19 floor plan. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And there's your drawing. Okay? So I zoom out. Notice I have my drawing here. Once you're all done with that, you're going to need to place that onto your title block and go ahead and upload that into Canvas, and you're all done. All right? Any questions? Good? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording here. This won't take too long to upload to YouTube, so you guys will be able to reference this video on the assignment relatively shortly. I would guess by the end of this class. So that should work just fine. Yes?
Oh, no, I just have a question.
Okay.